L'ultimo panel della serata per quanto riguarda la main hall è invece rivolto al business travel e incominciamo a chiamare sul palco per un keynote Flavio Ghirindelli di HRS o HRS come diciamo noi in Italia.
Grazie mille. Grazie mille. Buon pomeriggio a tutti. Innanzitutto vorrei ringraziare... Oh, sorry, we need to talk in English, of course. First of all, let me say thank you so much to the organization, to Giancarlo, to Philip, to give me the opportunity to be here today with you. So, we have seen a lot of things today, and we have spoken about leisure and how the big names are going to impact into the market. And the aim of the presentation today is to go through a little bit the business travel part and try to understand how this is going to impact into the market. So let's start with some numbers, just to let you understand a little bit about the numbers of the market. So in terms of value of business travel spend in the world, based on the recent let's say, exercise done in terms of research by GBTA. GBTA is the Global Business Travel Association. Has seen that from 2014 up to 2019, the growth in terms of business travel will be 71%. And the top 10 markets around the world will be US, China, and then all the rest you see, because of course US and China are very, very big. When it comes to Italy, let's say that we will have an increase of 4.2%. So compared to the total amount is not so much, but this is the figure that is forecasted for Italy. In terms of, let's say, evolution that we are seeing into the market, we are roughly seeing a shift of power from the travel management to the consumer. And this is going in essentially 4 phases, which is the traditional travel management phase, the procurement and cost-saving phase, duty of care risk management phase, and we have spoken a lot today about that, and of course the consumerization age, which is the one that is going to use a lot of internet and mobile devices. Let's see a little bit how is the situation among the markets with this kind of ranking in phases. So this is the situation around the market, and as you can see, Italy is in the middle between a phase which is still in the procurement cost-saving phase and the duty of care risk management phase, which does not mean that we are not going to see and to have interaction with corporates that are not interested into the development of the mobile devices, but for sure the more mature markets that at the moment they are using much frequently mobile devices and let's say consumerization features are those listed in the 4.0 phase. So if we are going to see a little bit what this means in terms of phases, of course, the phase number 1 is the basic fare, the one that we are going to apply travel policies, and the one in which we need to grant people to be able to make a trip, to fly, and to take a train, to take a hotel. But in the procurement phase, one of the most important things that we are seeing is the importance of the total cost of ownership. Or, for example, the virtual payment. And this is something that is going to impact a lot for corporate, and it is absolutely important to take into consideration. Why? Because, let's say, from the corporate point of view, the most important things are savings, integration, and simplicity. And of course, as we said, total cost of ownership means also have the opportunity to look to all the costs that are related to a trip. They need vertical experts, which means that a normal travel agency, which is absolutely important for a corporate, but then is like a sort of expert that needs to know everything because it needs to answer all the questions coming from a corporate. Sometimes it happens, especially in a hotel environment, that the TMCs are not so developed because they are always been, let's say, focusing a lot on the airline part and less on the hotel part. And this is not because the hotel part is not nice, but because simply it's more complicated. And that's why they need, most of the cases, vertical experts. They want to simplify the processes. And of course, they want to give something easy to use to the travelers. So you see that the situation is not easy because it's complex. And how, let's say, the suppliers need to answer to this. Of course, getting more source in terms of content, which means that they need to aggregate as much as possible content, of course. They need to be able to integrate their content into other internet and mobile devices by using API, web services, and this kind of technology, which is very important. They need to provide right data. And this is another thing that we feel that is very, very important, and able to offer services via, especially mobile, in a logic of what does today Amazon, for example. So a consultancy approach and IT investments, especially from the supplier point of view, is something very, very important. This is a little bit what HRS is doing in terms of serving the customers, vertically speaking, on the hotel. And what we are trying to do and to take into consideration is starting from sourcing, which is the most important part and difficult part for a corporate in order to be able to define the hotel program, to go all the process that normally a corporate needs to follow in order to be able then to use the rates that have been negotiated by themselves or by a consultant. Of course, rate loading, rate auditing, risk management, payment, expense management, and data analytics, which are very, very important in order to be able then to steer. If we are going to see the duty of care, today we have spoken a lot about duty of care, and what we see here is the blitz scaling. What means blitz scaling? Is the capability to manage crisis quickly and in real time. So this is something very important as well for the corporate, because of course when it comes to safety and security standards and speed, that normally are the things that the corporate is asking for, we need to be able, and what does it mean from the corporate point of view? They are asking for certifications for advanced safety standards and quick reactions. So everything done especially for to secure the traveler and to let them be very safe when they are going around the world. And in terms of a supplier, of course, what is important to have is to get the the certifications, to make integration with the risk management tools, which are very, very important. And of course, be able to communicate these features to the corporate, because sometimes we have seen that hotels that are having this kind of certifications, they are not able to communicate very easily with the customers, and this is creating some problems. Here we have some examples of risk management tools that HRS is integrated to, but everybody can really make this kind of agreement with these guys, and it's unbelievable because the service they are providing is absolutely quick and very easy to use. Then we have the consumerization age, which is the era of nowism or Amazonization. What does it mean, this? Nowism, here and now. Amazonization, capability to meet the customer needs during the interaction. So this is something very important from our point of view. This means that corporates are looking for quick online knowledge, instant satisfaction of needs, which means a service 24/7, which does not mean only an online service, but also the ability to then be in touch with some humans in order to solve problems and to understand what needs to be done. And then, of course, to have choice. From the supplier's point of view, it's important to have the capability to understand the needs, to gather and analyze data, and of course, try to have a multicultural and global approach. And this is done, in our opinion, through consultancy, of course, and again, IT investments. I really push a lot on the logic of the IT investments because, in our opinion, we are not in the leisure and corporate travel industry investing really enough for that. What could be the answer? Multi-source, customer care, of course, are services in which we can have the opportunity then to offer something different, because we have seen also in the presentation of today that somebody said that how long does it take to make the choice, the search, then to try to understand, compare the rates, and then make the choice. It's too long, and sometimes, especially in the corporate environment, we don't have enough time to make this choice. That's why a product like a multi-source that is going to gather all the sources from all the possible content providers that are present into the market could give the opportunity to make an immediate choice to the customers and be able then to work on this. Hyper-customization. Authenticity. These are other elements that are very important. Why? Because now, let's say that corporates are looking for automated recognition, preference satisfaction, and peers reviews. Peers reviews are very, very important. And not only for leisure, or we have seen this morning the presentation of TripAdvisor. TripAdvisor is perfect for leisure, but when it comes to corporate, they want to understand, for example, from the corporate point of view, if a person who has been able to stay in that hotel for corporate reason is giving a good review or a bad review, because of course it's important for them, as well as for the leisure. But you know, for the leisure, maybe you can spend some day and decide just to say, okay, it's just a bed, I don't need it. Sometimes for a corporate customer, it is completely different, because the room in a hotel is like an office, so it needs to be proper defined and proper used. When it comes to supplier, what needs to be delivered, in our opinion, of course, is making data analysis in order to be able then to satisfy and to recognize and then satisfy, of course, the preference of the customer. Social listening. We have seen also this afternoon the presentation in which we have understood that sometimes to have a look only to the data, the historical data, is good, but not enough. Why? Because we need to go and see forward. So that's why sometimes it's important to use the social listening. I was yesterday evening having a very good business dinner with a partner, and he was remembering me the fact that the expo that we had in Milan last year was something, let's say, somehow predictable in terms of results, because of course, if everybody was able to read properly all the social media exchange of messages that were there, it was clear that, especially at the beginning, it was not very good. And then at the end, it was perfect, but you can imagine how much investments in terms of room has been made by the hotels in order to be able to satisfy this. So that's why it's very important to take into consideration this. What is let's say, doing the market in order to be able to satisfy this. For example, HRS decided to invest into this new company. The name is Konichi, and is a company using the beacon technology, which means that by having a small tool into the reception of the hotel, The customer can use the mobile application and be able to enter into a hotel without making the check-in and then the check-out, because the system is recognizing immediately, the customer is recognizing immediately the preferences and all the things that he needs in order to be able then to use the service. So this is the kind of development that we see that will be important to have in the future. But now, what will be the future? Because we have seen we are already into the consumerization age, but there is a now and there is a future for that, of course. It is time data. What does it mean, this? Just to give you an example in terms of proportions. The proportion is always the same, but if you are going to see what is written there, we have 128 mega, and the other side is giga. So there is a huge difference, although the proportion of the shape is absolutely the same. And so that's why we have now an opportunity, because we have also the cost of storing data who is going down. So it is important for all the suppliers, for all the player into the market to gather this information, because I said that before, only by having the opportunity to look at this, you will have the opportunity then to understand better the consumer and the traveler. Less than two-thirds of hotels that are going to collect this data, they don't use them. So this is a very pity, because there is a huge opportunity here, where of course we could have the opportunity, as said, to interact properly with our customer. Artificial intelligence. I heard this word many times today, and I think that absolutely is something that is starting now, but it will continue for a long time. So this is something that we need to understand what does it mean and how it's going to impact into the market. Here we have the bots that, of course, those are robots that are going to use or give the opportunity to give answers to our customers on our behalf. And of course, these could be used especially when it comes to try to offer customer service, let's say customer care services. And of course, this is something a little bit difficult to do, because honestly, I have to say, what I see as an evolution is that at the moment, the actual robots that we have as artificial intelligence at our disposal are something that are okay for the pre-trip, are okay for the post-trip, but when we have the customer, the traveler on trip, this is something that not yet is going to give proper answer or proper services to our customers. So we need to understand exactly what needs to be done. Just to make you an example, also always considering the corporate point of view, I would like to say that all the corporates normally today are using travel policies in order to be able to give guidelines to the travelers on what needs to be done. And sometimes when the people, they will use the policies, they will apply the guidelines when they are making the booking. But when they are in trip and something happens, they need to change. They don't remember maybe sometimes how is the travel policy. Then there could be, for example, the opportunity for a bot guidelining, if you want, the traveler, saying, okay, you need to change the flight, you need to change the train, the hotel, you need to follow these are the rules, you can do this, and that. This is the way and the evolution we see for this artificial intelligence that is very important, but needs to be, in my opinion, furtherly developed. Of course, this means that mobile is the future. We are going to see a lot of things that still will be done through the computer, so through internet, but mobile, as we said today, is our additional arm, so it's something that absolutely is going to give us the opportunity to do a lot of things. Why? Because we are going to ask and to ask for this. So we want the wow effect from what we offer to our customers. So this is absolutely something that we need to work for and to be able to deliver this kind of service to our corporate. This is so.
Thank you very much, Flavio. You would take a seat.
Sure. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Pedro Valaves, Vice President from TravelClick.
Hola. My name is Pedro. A couple of comments. First, don't get distracted by my Yorkshire accent. I'm Spanish, very Spanish. Second, thank you to every one of you. By the way, a fantastic group of friends, colleagues, partners. Thank you for being here at this time of the day. In my home country, it's siesta time, so it's very difficult to put people together in a room. The third comment I have is that we don't have a presentation here, so I will be talking during these 20 minutes throughout a journey in which we will travel together on what has happened with the business travel environment from a global perspective, the Italian perspective, and then we will put it in connection with some of the hotel financials. Talking in public is known for being one of the things people fear the most. Actually, people prefer to die rather than talking in public. So I will be sharing this fear with you, and I will be asking questions. So from time to time, we will be interacting, we will be sharing a few things, and from there, we will make some calculations to come back to conclusions. If I go back 15 years and 20 kilos ago, which was the first time that I was on a stage like this, talking about leisure and business travel. At those times, it was pretty easy to talk about it, because at the end of the day, if a guest was wearing a tie, a jacket, was having a briefcase, was a business traveler. If he was wearing shorts, Nikon camera, was a leisure traveler. So it was pretty easy to differentiate who was in which segment. Today it has become slightly more complex. There is this spaghetti distribution concept in which every single actor, every single player touches different points of the distribution chain. And of course, business travel is not an alien to this and has been heavily impacted. So today, probably the best guessing that we can have when we talk about business travel and we try to size what is the market in terms of business travelers is actually looking at one of those distribution components that are by default very, very intimately attached to the travel distribution for corporates, which is the GDS. And then try to figure out at property level that if your hotel happens to be in Milano or in Torino or in Rome or in Madrid, and it's the month of May, and it's a Tuesday, and you have people checking in, probably you consider them business travelers rather than leisure travelers, unless the Pope is organizing something special in Rome. But typically, this is the way we try to make the calculations. Effectively, if we look at it from a global perspective, and now comes one of the questions, how many hotels are worldwide? Do you have any estimate? I don't know, 100,000, 1 million, 3 million? Any idea on how many hotels do we have in the planet? 300,000, not far from the figure. Not far from the figure, it's a very good one. Actually, it's 300,000 depending if we consider agriturismo, casas rurales, alternative lodging, not Airbnb, but alternative lodging. If we consider it part of the industry, then it's more than 300, otherwise it's 300,000. It's about 400,000 altogether. And those 400,000 accommodation outlets have a global supply of some 7 billion, American billions, so 7 miliardi di camere, the 7 billion rooms available per year. Any idea on what is the average occupancy worldwide? It's a business that has 400,000 buildings, 7 billion rooms, Any idea on what is the average occupancy worldwide? Any guess? Okay, last year, for the first time, since the World Tourism Organization is keeping track record, it went beyond 50%, and actually it's around 52%. So it's a very interesting business, because it's a business in which half of the product expires at midnight, but seems to keep on growing. So it's very interesting from an academic standpoint to assess what is happening there. So all in all, we have 3.5 billion, 3 miliardi e mezzo of rooms which are occupied. The average occupancy system-wide is 2.1, 2.2 nights per booking, because when we talk business travelers, we need to talk about bookings, not necessarily room nights. So that takes the figure down from 3.5 to 1.5, 1.6. Globally, about 70% of the business is driven by the MICE segment, meetings, incentives, conferences, and events, and leisure travelers. And in fact, leisure is much bigger in terms of size than the business travel environment. So that 70% takes down the figure to about 320, 350 million bookings globally that are driven or are consumed by business travelers. And by business travelers, we have all flavors of business travelers. We have the big guys, presidents, chairmen, vice presidents from the Coca-Colas, the Accentures, and the different companies which are publicly traded and we all know about. But we also have business travelers who come from small, mid-sized enterprises, occasionally local or regional, but they also do their travel internally. From those 320, 330 million bookings, the GDSs capitalize 100 millions. If we put together the core business of the GDS in the screens at the travel agencies and the APIs and integrations that they have with different platforms, and as Flavio was addressing, self-booking tools, corporate platforms that control travel policies, etc. So all in all, it's about 28 to 30% of the total piece that corresponds to the business traveler globally. Let's come to Italy, and let's see what happens in Italy. So when we come to Italy, how many hotels do we have in Italy? Any idea? 10,000, 50,000, 100,000? 33,000. Yes, it's 33,000. Actually, it's the third country in Europe with the largest inventory in terms of properties. Only the UK and Germany have a bit more than Italy, and you have almost twice the amount of properties in my home country and twice definitely the amount of properties in France. And what's the average hotel size in terms of rooms? You have any idea? It's about 30. It is 33 actually, which is a beautiful figure for the purpose of this calculation, because if we take 33,000 hotels, 33 rooms per hotel in average, and 365 days a year, what we have is literally 1.1 million rooms available per day, which accounts for 400 million rooms available per year, which is fantastic. It's not so fantastic, the 33, frankly speaking, because from an scalability standpoint, it's very difficult with such a small size to make sure that you can optimize your operating expenses in order to have a proper GOP or a proper EBITDA. It's difficult to scale the properties. So coming back to Italy, we have these 400 million rooms available per year, out of which about 20% are seasonal, so we cannot count on them as being open of the season, the Amalfis, the Sardinias, the Sorrentos of this world, so we need to take them out, and we end up being in some 320 million rooms available. What's the average occupancy in Italy for the country? It's about 60, 62%. Actually, over the last 2 years, Southern Europe has been benefiting for some of the special situations that have been occurring or taking place in the Eastern Mediterranean area. So we have increased our occupancy globally in Southern Europe by 4 or 5 points. So yeah, it's 60, 62%. So that takes us to some 200 million rooms which are occupied on an annual basis in Italy. From those 200 million rooms with an average length of stay of a bit more than 2.5 nights, because Italy has a very strong component of leisure with long stays. We end up having some 80 million 80 million bookings, which account for these 220 room nights. Italy is predominantly a leisure market. And when we were saying before that MICE and leisure globally accounted for 70%, I'm rounding the figures just to make easier the maths. In the case of Italy, it's about 80%, the combination of leisure and MICE. So what is left for business traveler is 20%. That 20%, therefore, brings us to some 15 million bookings, which are accounted for business travelers. If we look at the GDS's statistics, and before we were saying that GDSs globally account for some 30%, 28 to 30% of the total business travelers world. When it comes to Italy, any guess of how many bookings are transacted through GDSs? Significantly less. In fact, it's about 750,000, it's 750,000, which means that in general, the GDSs have a presence of 5% in the Italian market, which is relevant for a reason. It's relevant for a reason. I do believe, and I think that all of us agree with that after seeing Flavio presenting the Amazonization and how the different platforms, technologies, etc., are influencing the market. We all agree that a modern society is a society with efficient intermediation. No one goes back to the fountain to get the water. We buy water at the supermarket. We pay for that, but we consider that efficient. The GDSs are extremely efficient in terms of providing business because they are very defensive. Not everything within the GDSs happens to be managed by the American Express, the Carlsons of this world. There are a lot of small, mid-sized travel agencies, independents, which are generating business on a continuous basis. But at the same time, it's very defensive because the business traveler environment is the first one to react when the economy, as Flavio addressed, is in the limelight or something is happening locally. And that's good. I'm not saying, I will never dare to say that the GDSs are generating business, because it's very difficult for the GDSs to influence business for a destination. However, they have the ability to shift business from one hotel to another, and since at the end of the day, you are competing one to each other. And this is of relevance because of another element that I wanted to take into account. Are you familiar with the concept USALI? So some of you are consolidating your accounts in USALI. USALI stands for the Uniform Systems of Accounts for the lodging industry. And somehow is the way that international investors and international owners and international brands can compare apples to apples beyond the creativity or the internal system that we have in each hotel to measure our profit and loss or our key performance indicators. This is a uniform system of accounts. The uniform system of accounts is ruled by a sort of committee that gets together every year, and like every committee, needs to do something every year and change things in order to survive and justify why they are there. Until 2 years ago, commissions were part of the administration and general cost. It was considered a cost of sales. So it was not impacting the operating performance of the hotel in terms of rooms profit or food and beverage profit. It was impacting administration and general cost. Since 2 years ago, commissions have become as a rooms cost and need to go up, impacting the profitability of rooms. And that is extremely, extremely important to analyze because the biggest challenge of the hotel industry historically has been food and beverage, not rooms. Rooms always have a healthy profit margin. You have the concierge, you have the receptionist, and then housekeeping could be outsourced. Very little cost involved. Commissions actually happened to be at that time something that was not impacting the room, but it was actually the highest cost associated to the rooms. Today, that cost is transparent. And that means that when in a country like mine, where during the last 3 years what we have seen is international investors coming to buy hotels because of the financial situation that we've been living in my country, what happens is that the very first thing they look at is your business mix, your profit and loss, and what is your channel mix. How much of your business is controlled by you because you know the names of the ones who are making the bookings, and those names come through channels that you can control and are transparent to you. And as I said before, a modern society is an intermediated society on an efficient manner. So I would never say this is better than the other. But definitely to have the right mix is something that is needed in order to have a proper operation of the hotel and to be able to portray your hotel as a jewel rather than something that requires a lot of re-engineering behind. That's why this 7% in terms of GDS is something that historically, since I was working actually with Flavio in Amadeus 10 years ago, was hurting me, and it would be fantastic if we all together can slowly make it change.
Thank you very much,
Thank you
Pedro.
very much.
You can have a seat for a moment. So, quick question before we wrap up. This morning I asked Glenn Fogel at Priceline Group, or somebody from the audience, do you focus on business travelers? And they say no, but we all know 15-20% of the volume on Booking.com is for business travelers. Same thing at conferences, meetings, and events. Lots of Airbnb bookings now. And this audience is primarily leisure focused. So how does this audience attract more business travelers? What do they do?
Well, depends on how much leisure happens to be the property. If we are thinking, I don't know, Pitrizza in Costa Smeralda, or we are thinking Capri, it will be certainly difficult for me to try to convince anyone to put the bets on the business traveler side. But from what I know, Italy, and obviously I'm not an expert compared to this audience, Italy has an economic system which is extremely diversified and has a lot of capillarity, meaning that there are a lot of small cities which happen to have an industrial areas in the surroundings of the city and therefore are attractive for business travelers. So if we think of cities like Ferrara or Brescia or Verona, Bologna, there is an industrial network around there that definitely can capitalize, regardless of Romeo and Juliet, they can capitalize something else.
Any suggestions?
Well, I have to say, I strongly believe that it's important, for example, to understand that although most of you are working with leisure, because Italy is a leisure destination, but still we have a lot of business travel, let's say, arriving into Italy and outgoing out of Italy. So the usage of the hotel is very important. Why? Because when we are going to make the analysis on the data, especially when we are entering in touch with the corporate, when it comes to talk to corporate having a site in Italy, roughly 75-80% of the traffic is generated internally in Italy. So this is something important, which means that although, as we said, the offer that we have at the moment in Italy in terms of number of hotels is very high, and if we are then going to add also the other components like Airbnb or the any other, let's say, kind of accommodation, we are going to talk roughly around 55,000 properties offered to the corporate. So the most important part, in my opinion, that we need to consider is to listen to the customer, so exactly what they need and how we are able to satisfy the needs. And the second thing, again, the logic of duty of care, so the risk management, which is very important. Why this? Because we have recently had the opportunity to talk also. I showed to you some risk management tools, and there is the ISOS system, and the managing director of this company recently said that it's very difficult for a corporate to be safe in using Airbnb, for example, not because Airbnb is a fantastic product, but it's for leisure, not for corporate. So when it comes that we need to give the proper service, the proper solution or product to a corporate, we need to take into consideration always hotels. So this is something very important.
Okay, I think we've had a very long day. Ladies and gentlemen, Pedro and Flavio, thank you very much.
Thank you to you.
And thank you all, and see you tomorrow.